Hello, and thank you for tuning in to a Hex DC summer live stream. My name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of Hex DC. And today is Sunday, June 4th, I believe it's June 4th, 2023, and I will be taking you on a little stroll around the National Mall here in Washington, DC. Specifically with this live stream, I wanted to do a little bit of a construction update. There are some new fences, some new cranes, some existing cranes from last year, and people have been asking me some questions about them. What's going on? When are things going to open? When are things going to reopen? And so hopefully I will be able to give you a bit of an update about that today. So welcome. If you are joining me here live, go ahead and say hello in the live chat. And if you're watching this on the replay, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And leave a comment and let me know if you've been here yet this year, if you're planning on coming later this year, if you're planning on coming this summer, when are you planning to come? It is peak tourism season here in Washington, DC. So we have two peak seasons here. We have spring break and summer break. And we had Memorial Day weekend last weekend, which means we are now squarely into summer break. So a lot of people are here. It is a beautiful day here in Washington, DC. Let me see if I can open up my watch and check what the temperature is. So right now it is, according to my watch, 67 degrees Fahrenheit. We have cloudy skies. It's a little cloudy. Still have my sunglasses. It's sunny enough to need those. And of course, the Hex DC hat. I just posted a short this morning. Someone asked, what should I pack if I'm visiting in June? And definitely the hat, definitely the sunglasses, definitely the sunscreen, and summer clothes. So I will go ahead and flip around so that you can see what I go ahead and start saying hello to those tuned in. So Bill says, hi, love the channel. Thanks for tuning in, Bill. Glad that you enjoy it. And Joe in Texas. Al says hello. And James from Higgins, Pennsylvania. By the way, if you are tuned in live, let me know who you are and where in the world you're tuned in from so that I can say hello. It's also intramural sports season, peak intramural sports season here in Washington, DC. So I already passed it, but we've got volleyball off in the distance. This appears to be flag football right here. Flag football right here as well. And then we've got some soccer games going on down over there. Now, interestingly, I meet people from all over the world who come on my tours, and for some people, flag football is a bit of a foreign concept. So I'm curious to know. Now, I definitely grew up with flag football, but I'm curious for those tuned in, did you play flag football when you were a kid? If not, do you even know what flag football is? I'm on my way to the Lincoln Memorial now. Sergio was there a week ago from Las Vegas, loved it, wants to go back. I am thrilled to hear that. Kat says hello with an exclamation point. Hello, Kat. And Eddie Saunders, good to see you here, my friend. Eddie Saunders says, it is unusually chilly North Carolina June day. Well, I think 67 degrees is probably below average temperature for June here in DC. I'll take it. We had over 90 degrees yesterday. I can tell you for sure that my tour this morning, we did it in much nicer weather than my tour yesterday. Not to say that yesterday's weather was bad by any means, but much hotter yesterday. Yeah. And thanks all for tuning in and letting me know who you are. And Robin says, love these live walks. So informative, good to hear it. Moving to DC in the spring of 2024. Wow, my son works on the Hill. I was there last 4th of July and loved it. So spring 2024, you've still got a little bit of time to sort that out. I do have some resources for people who are moving to DC. Last year, I produced a podcast episode with John Coleman, a local real estate agent. And we've got a full-blown hour conversation for tips for moving to DC. I also produced a 3-video series about moving to DC. But unfortunately, that's probably all I'm going to do because Hex DC is mostly about travel and travel tips, and so those videos didn't perform particularly well. It's just not really the audience I have, but they are there. They are a resource if you want to check them out. And Joe came at the end of April and coming back the second week of December. So you will have different experience visiting in April than you will in December. Not worse or anything like that, just different. Just a different experience. I actually like all the seasons for different reasons. I like December because the days are shorter, the crowds are smaller. So if you, quote unquote, want to see the monuments at night, specifically in the dark, December is a great month to do that because it's dark on the shortest day of the year. In December, it's dark at 4:45, basically. So you want to see the monuments lit up at dark? Come in December because you will definitely get that. And you don't even have to stay out late. And Al is coming the last week of August. Happy to hear it. And 3540 Media, that's a lot of numbers, says I was there in mid-March from Oklahoma. I wish I'd known about the videos before the trip. Well, you know about them now, so next time you come, you will be well prepared. And Alan Wynn, good to see you, my friend, checking in from Jacksonville, Florida. Alan confirming, even on video, it looks like the perfect day in DC. It is quite nice today. Eddie Saunders says it's 63 degrees Fahrenheit, so it is, so North Carolina, 2 states to the south, even cooler down there than it is up here. Yeah, 63 is not, it's a little chilly, unseasonably chilly. That's potentially jacket weather. And Rosa is traveling June 13th to the 17th. Coming up soon. By the way, I posted about this on Instagram yesterday, but I know not everyone sees that, so let me just go ahead and restate the importance. If you are visiting this summer, you have your trip planned, but you don't have all your activities booked and you don't have all your tickets and your reservations, get them. Don't wait any longer. Get those reservations. It always makes me sad when someone contacts me too late and they say, hey, we're only here for 2 days or 3 days. We really want to take a Trip Hex DC tour, but everything on the calendar looks booked up, because it is. So there's actually still quite a bit of availability in July, not so much in June, but in July there's quite a bit of availability left on the calendar. And my hunch is that it won't last forever. So if you're coming this summer, June, July, even August, get those reservations in as soon as you can, because it's better to get them in and not have to stress about it than to come back to it in a month, try to book everything that you thought was going to be available and it's not. So that's my plug, not just for Trip Hex DC Tours, that's for anything that you want to do that requires a ticket or a reservation. Go ahead and get those in as soon as you can. Okay, Kat says, thanks for the video. We are planning to visit this summer. Happy to hear it. And Kelly is from, oops, I lost it. Kelly and Seth from Phoenix, coming in 2 days, excellent. And Rosa is from Sonoma, California, very nice. Shirley played flag football in middle school and high school. Al knows flag football. Alan knows flag football. And Jeff and Roberta from, sorry, my chat is moving on me here. I'm working on a little screen. Trying to keep up with the chat. Jeff and Roberta from St. Louis coming to DC in a couple of weeks. Happy to hear it. And Kat tries to look for information. I tried to look for information but failed. You know, if we go to a museum, can we bring a bottle of sunscreen? So I believe for most museums, the answer to this is yes. So I'm actually in the process of recording a short video to answer this question. But most museums, you can bring a backpack. You can bring things like food and sunscreen. The Capitol, the White House, the National Archives, they have much stricter rules about what you can and cannot bring in, so make sure to double check those places specifically. But most museums, you can bring in a bag and you can bring in things in that bag. You will just have it searched when you go through the door. All right, I'm very carefully making my way up these stairs. And Sky Blue Jay, good to see you here, my friend. It is afternoon in a sunny Coventry, 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you for the conversion. Over in the UK. Okay. And Sergio wants to come back in December as well. So we're here at the Lincoln Memorial, and it is as busy and crowded as it ever is. It's the weekend. It's a nice day. It actually was even busier yesterday. Yesterday was Saturday. It was even busier. But the main purpose of coming over here today on this live stream is to give you an update on the construction. So people have noticed, hey, there's some fences going up around the Lincoln Memorial. Hey, it looks like they're ripping up the grass over near the Lincoln Memorial. What is going on? So they were about to embark on a major, multi-year, multi-million-dollar construction project to redo the entire underneath of the Lincoln Memorial. So when you come to DC, when you come on a Trip Hex DC tour, I will take you up these stairs inside the main temple. We'll get to see the statue of Abe Lincoln in there. And it's great, it's wonderful. But what is underneath? Well, currently not much. It's all mostly closed off to the public. And there's a lot of reasons for that I won't get into. But this big project is to rebuild that underneath area and reopen it to the public. So that is the primary purpose of the project. There's a whole bunch of fences like this up right now. Very scary signs, no trespassing, no visitors, don't go in, all this stuff. You can see they've ripped up some of the grass over there. And so they've already started working on this a little bit. The fencing, it goes all the way up and around, all the way to the back. So when you come, this is going to be part of your photos for the next several years. And it's just kind of how it is. When you come to the monuments and memorials, there will always be at least something under construction, under renovation. You're never going to come to Washington, D.C. and find that everything is perfectly open and without something at least being updated or renovated. So that is the current status of the construction here. Now, what exactly are they going to put down there? So there's several actually exciting things that they're going to put down there. They're going to build a big exhibit. It's going to show, historic events that happened during history here at the Lincoln Memorial. Obviously, some of the most well-known ones are the March on Washington from 1963, the Marian Anderson concert, and some of the other big political marches and events that happened here. They're going to have, I understand, a big, clear, glass wall where you'll be able to see into the undercroft of the memorial from inside that little exhibit, so that's going to be really cool. They are adding a second elevator. So currently there's only one elevator here, which stinks because if you need elevator access and you come on a day when the elevator is broken, you're just out of luck. So they're adding a second elevator, which will greatly improve accessibility. And they're also moving the gift store down underneath as well. So currently the gift store, you have to go inside, go in the main chamber, and then they basically, I don't know how else to describe it other than to say they basically repurposed an old broom closet or something as the gift store. So it's tiny, it's not a good gift store experience, and so that will be updated as well. So that's everything that's happening here at the Lincoln Memorial. The good news is that you will still be able to go up the stairs, you will still be able to go inside the chamber, you'll still be able to see the famous statue of Lincoln. The Trip Hex DC private monuments tour will be unaffected, and the trivia tour will be unaffected, so don't stress out about that. You'll still be able to do all of that when you come. And with that, I will start making my way over to the Jefferson Memorial next, which is also under renovation. All right, Alan Wynn wants there to be intramural, full contact chess. I have no idea what that would look like, but it does sound interesting, Alan. And Seth is coming from Phoenix on Tuesday. Videos have been helpful, happy to hear it. Marv, hello from New York City, hello. And Al says, thank you for your podcast on DC for the disabled. Great information that I needed. Due to my recommendation, we moved to the Wharf. So yes, thank you for plugging that for me, Al. Let me go ahead and tell you about that. So I know it probably came too late. When I started the Trip Hex DC podcast 5 years ago, I made a big list of all the topics I wanted to cover, and accessibility was one of the first on the list. It was a really important topic. But unfortunately, I didn't want to do it solo. I didn't want to do it on my own because I wanted to make sure that everything I said was correct and that everything I said is something, or ideally something that someone else had experienced that could speak on. So It took me a really long time to find the right guest for that episode. And I'm lucky because in the end, I didn't just have one guest, I had two fantastic guests who joined me for that conversation, and they run an accessibility-focused social media channel and way more followers on Instagram and TikTok. .com/podcast. You will find it there. You can also find Trip Hex DC podcast in all the podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify, all of them. They're all there. So go ahead and check it out. I am quite happy with that one. I'm quite proud of how that one turned out. So I know it's been a long time coming, but thank you all for being with me while I got that put together. Okay, Joe says, your December video convinced us to come then, maybe see some decorations and ice skating. Yes, so if you come in December, you will see some Christmas decorations. We have plenty of Christmas decorations. They might not be quite as famous or quite as spectacular as the New York City Christmas decorations, but they're here and I think they're quite nice. So come in December, you'll be able to check that out. And Mark Finley, good to see you here, my friend. Mark says, heating up there. It is getting a little warmer. When I left my home this morning to give my private monuments tour, it was 61 degrees. So it is warmer now than it was earlier today. But it's definitely, I guess, below average temperature day here in DC. And William asks, have I been to the Blind Wino in Southwest DC? Yes, I have. I actually, I made a TikTok about it back when I was trying to be more active over there. So go ahead and check that out if you want to see what it is. Basically, it's a pretty cool artist's space. A lot of cool art over there. And Eddie Saunders says, I need to get planning a trip to DC almost halfway through the year and still have 4 weeks of vacation to book. Well, if you're coming in the summer, Eddie, don't wait too long. Although I think for you, I would probably recommend coming in the fall if you can swing it. And Ozzy wants to know, what do I think of fall of 2024? If you're asking if I think it's a good time to visit, I think it's a perfectly fine time to visit. Okay, I have to make a decision whether to go left or right up here to get over to the Jefferson Memorial. I'm gonna go right. I'm gonna do the river walk today. It's a nice day, might as well take advantage of the weather. And Net is visiting at the end of July. Can't wait, happy to hear it. And Boston Elevators and Aviation says, hey. Hey to you as well. And Bat Dog will be here in October, says, I love October in DC. So do I. So do I. I personally, now my general opinion is that it's always a good time to visit. Don't spend your mental energy trying to figure out when the single best day of the year is to visit. I think it's always a good time to visit. But if you made me choose my favorite month in DC, it would be October. For the reason that you get cooler weather. By the end of summer, now today's a nice day. Today's a rare, nice June day. But by the end of summer, it can start feeling like jacket weather is something you look forward to. So October tends to have the cooler jacket weather and just a lot of stuff happening. Not as much as in the summer, but it's a fun time. So October is my personal favorite. Boston Elevators says, do you think that one day DC will see skyscrapers if the height limit is removed? And what's the truth about the height limit? All right, excellent questions here. So I heard someone say something recently that kind of stuck with me. they said that political movements, they often feel impossible until it happens, and then after it's over, it feels like, how was this always not the way that it was? I said it much less elegantly than the person who I heard say that. And when it comes to things like the Height Act in Washington, D.C., or D.C. statehood, that's often how it feels. And you could go back in history and say that about many things. And so I'm not particularly optimistic that it's going to happen in the immediate future, but I feel like if and when it does ever happen, we'll look back on it and say, I can't believe this took so long. Now, what is the truth about the height limit? Now, I have several resources about this. I have a short video, I have an entire video about DC myths that I wanted to bust. And basically, the height limit has nothing to do directly with the Washington Monument. The height limit is the result of the Height of Buildings Act from way back in the 1800s that was put into place by Congress because a hotel developer built a hotel called the Cairo, which is near DuPont Circle, and it's 14 stories tall, which is a skyscraper, or at least that's what it was considered back when it was new. People who lived nearby hated that building. They hated living near a quote-unquote skyscraper, 14 stories tall. So the Height of Buildings Act limits buildings to the maximum height of the width of the building that it's on, plus an additional fixed amount of feet. So that's the truth about the Height Act. If you come to Washington, D.C. and you take an Uber ride and you ask, hey, why aren't there any tall buildings? You are much more likely to hear the incorrect answer than you are to hear the correct answer. All right, we've reached 50, at least on my screen it says 50 concurrent viewers. That's a big number, so if you haven't done so already, go ahead and say hello in the chat. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and if you're planning on visiting DC soon. Robin points out that it is really humid in July. That is factually correct. It is very humid in July. So just like I just said that October is my personal favorite month of the year, I hate to say this, but July is probably my least favorite. And I say that knowing full well that for Trip Hex DC Tours, the two busiest months of the year are April and July. And it's the simple reality that people are here when kids are off school. And more kids off school in the summer than there are in the fall. All right, so I am making my way down Ohio Drive. I'll cross the street. Well, actually, I was waiting to see if I'd be able to cross the street. I'm not sure if you can tell. It does say that the path is closed over there. They are doing some construction, which is a bit of a bummer. I was hoping to walk the river path, but that's not in the cards today. So just like often has to be done, it's time to improvise. All right, Virginia wants to know, outside of the museums, which public bathrooms are available. So on the National Mall, split the National Mall into two halves. There's the museum half, which is east of the Washington Monument, and then there's the monuments half, which is west of the Washington Monument. So every museum has restrooms, public restrooms. So when you're on the east side, you can go into any museum, use a restroom. Now, I realize this is easier said than done because to get into a museum, you have to go through security. Sometimes you have to wait in line. And when you really have to go, that's not ideal. But it's available. There's also a public restroom at the Dwight Eisenhower Memorial, which is on the south side of Independence Avenue, right across from the Air and Space Museum. So that one's relatively new. It just opened in 2020. I feel like a lot of people don't even know that that one's there, unfortunately, due to its location. It is not included on the Trip Hex DC Monuments Tour, and probably not included on most companies' Monuments Tours, but it's there, and it does have a public restroom you can use. So give that a look. So that's the east side of the National Mall. Now on the west side, there are public restrooms at the Washington Monument, at the Lodge, which is on the east side of the Washington Monument. There's public restroom at the World War II Memorial. On the south side of the memorial, there's a public restroom. And then somewhat nearby, there's another restroom right down the path at the DC War Memorial, the District of Columbia World War Memorial. There's also a restroom at the Lincoln Memorial, which is inside, so go up the ramp and then inside the little door, and it's in there. There's a restroom at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial that actually had been closed for about a week. It's reopened now. There's 2 restrooms at the FDR Memorial. And there are temporary restrooms at the Jefferson Memorial, which I may be able to show you today. So that's the restroom situation on the National Mall. I do feel like, generally speaking, restroom availability is pretty decent on the National Mall compared to other parts of town. For example, Georgetown, which is very popular with visitors, I feel like has much more limited restroom availability. But for most tourists who are coming to the National Mall, you should be okay. And this actually was, I don't know if everybody's setting me up for this specifically, but restroom availability and restroom accessibility was one of many topics covered on the most recent episode of the Trip Hex DC podcast, the podcast episode about accessible travel. So another plug for that. Accessibility does not just mean physical accessibility. This is an important thing that we discussed. There are visible disabilities, there are invisible disabilities. A lot of people are going to benefit from listening to that episode, even if you feel like, oh, I don't have a physical disability. So definitely give that a listen. Talked about restrooms as well. All right, Ozzy says, I'm planning to visit in November. Love November. It would be my 4th time to visit. Can't wait. Looking forward to the fall season. What are some places to see the autumn colors? Basically, anywhere where there's a lot of trees. So how about here? There's a lot of nice trees around here. Now many of these are the cherry trees, so they might not be quite as colorful as elsewhere. But if you go and look at the Trip Hex DC Instagram account from last fall, you'll see I took some photos of colorful trees over by the Vietnam Memorial. I took some photos of colorful trees over by the World War II Memorial. Basically anywhere that there are trees, you're likely to find some colors. And Kat says, I'm taking a bit of a walk. Is there a bus that can get you from Lincoln to Jefferson? Yes, the circulator bus. I think one passed by not too long ago, so go ahead and rewind and look for the big red bus. So the circulator bus, I actually am in the process of working on an updated video about the circulator, because like I mentioned the last time I did one of these live streams, circulator is a bit misunderstood. Circulator bus is not a single bus, it's not a single bus route, it's a bus system. And there are currently, I believe, 6 routes that are part of the circulator. So when most tourists talk about riding the circulator, they're talking about the National Mall route specifically. And that will take you from Union Station, past all the museums, the Washington Monument, Jefferson Memorial, loop all the way back around to Lincoln, and then back to Union Station. Now the trick is that because of the way the route is structured, it goes from Jefferson, then to FDR/MLK at its next stop, and then to Lincoln at its next stop. So if you're at Lincoln and you want to go to Jefferson, it's going to be a long way, all the way back to Union Station and then all the way back around. So I recommend, if you're going to use the circulator, to plan your trip so that you're doing Jefferson, then getting on the circulator, then potentially you could do Somebody just made a spectacular catch in this softball game over here. Not sure if you picked up that excitement on microphone, but I'm carefully dodging the softball games here to make sure I don't get hit with a strongly struck ball. Okay, Sky Blue Jay says, my wife recommends the restroom at the FDR Memorial, especially if you're having a nosebleed. Sounds like you're speaking from experience there. Interestingly, I typically don't use the restroom at the Jefferson Memorial because in the tour, but just last weekend I feel like one of my guests had to use the restroom over at the FDR Memorial, and they commented that they were very impressed with the restroom there, which I guess my standards are low. I'm not really ever impressed by a public restroom, but they seemed to like that one. Everyone has different standards, though. Okay, Eduardo from Brazil. Welcome, Eduardo. And Jason says, my daughter and I are visiting in August. Happy to hear it. A decent number of you are coming in August, which is interesting. Now this August, they are actually going to have, I believe, I think it's starting in mid-August. Don't remember the exact dates. For the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, there's going to be some special programming. I believe they're setting up some temporary monuments in the park that will be there for about a month. So might get lucky and see some interesting things if you come in August. Okay, Boston Elevators wants to know, how do I think Randy Clark is doing with the bus network? So for those who don't know, if you didn't watch my most recent tourism update video, I specifically called out Randy Clark, who's the general manager of Metro, to say I think he's doing a good job. I feel like we're often so harsh on people and institutions that sometimes you need to take a step back and say, hey, you're doing a good job. So I think he's doing a good job with Metro generally. As far as the bus network, so the thing is, the general manager, my understanding is, doesn't have a lot of control over things like the routes, doesn't have a lot of control over things that are other than like the day-to-day operations. So I really don't feel like I have any complaints per se. There was a proposed new bus route system. It's gonna take a long time to get approved by all the various stakeholders, but I looked at it and I thought, looks good to me. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Okay, Virginia says, you are amazing. Well, I'm happy that you think so. Virginia says, getting there June 8th to the 12th, staying at the Embassy Suites Convention Center. Appreciate the information. Well, I'm happy to hear it. That is a solid location, solid home base for a trip. And Al says, I love your information about seeing the monuments at night, something we have on our list to do. Yeah, so the tricky thing is, today's June 4th. So we are approaching the longest days of the year. So in about 2.5 weeks, we're gonna have the longest days of the whole year, and it's not gonna be dark until 9 o'clock, if not slightly after 9 o'clock. So if you want to, quote unquote, see the monuments at night, at this time of year, you're gonna be out late, which is different than if you come in the winter. If you come in December, 4:45, not even happy hour time yet, and they're already lit up. So it's all about when you're here. All right, Eddie Saunders has included some information about the circulator map, so thank you for that, Eddie. So I am, like I said, in the process of doing some sort of updated video about what is the circulator explained, because I do feel like it is a bit misunderstood. And people, when they speak to me about circulator, they're almost always referring only to the National Mall route, but it's more than that. So it's important to get these things right. And Jason says, my daughter and I are coming from Canada. Happy to hear it. Staying near L'Enfant Station. We are attending a show at the Eisenhower Center. The Eisenhower Center, is that the Kennedy Center? If it's not, what is the Eisenhower Center? I'm not familiar with that. All right, and Virginia says, is there an app that includes all the circulator routes? When I use directions in Google Maps, I don't believe it gives me the circulator option. I believe Google Maps does give you the circulator option. So these apps are tricky because the app that I use, the app that I personally use, is called Transit. That's it, it's just called Transit. And it works in many parts of the world. I've actually used this in other cities. I was on my own little trip last year and used Transit and checked to see when the next bus was coming, and it was great. But it's also got a bit of a steep learning curve, right? So if you don't ride buses often, you might open up Transit and just be overwhelmed with the amount of information that it's giving to you and just really struggle with figuring that out. If you're comfortable, yeah, it's great. That's the one I personally use. There are other bus apps that are more basic, I guess you could say, and maybe a little easier to use, but less powerful, less information. So it's tricky. Google Maps I think Google Maps is fine for what it is. When I started Trip Hex DC, I recommended people use City Mapper. I don't use City Mapper anymore. I think Google Maps has incorporated a lot of the features that used to be exclusive to City Mapper. So if anyone, I know many of you watching are travelers. So as travelers, when you go to other cities, because many of these apps work in many cities, what are your favorite transit apps? Is it Google Maps all the way? Is it Ride or Die Google Maps, or are there others that you use? Let's learn from each other. All right, Eddie Saunders is similarly confused about the Eisenhower Center. Luis says, greetings from Costa Rica. Greetings. I've never been to Costa Rica, but every winter, in the dead of winter, in January, I think, man, I bet it would be nice over there. Also, I'm a big fan of coffee, and Costa Rica is squarely in the coffee belt, so I've always thought I would enjoy going there for that reason. Now, this morning at 8:37, we had high tide. This entire path was underwater. I arrived at my tour at 8:35, 2 minutes before high tide, and I had to go all the way around to the opposite side to access the Jefferson Memorial. Now, fortunately, the group who was with me today, they also came from the east side, but a lot of folks, if they come for the tour and they catch a ride, they get an Uber or a cab, they get dropped off in that area back there on the road, and then they have to walk down this path, which normally is not a problem, but this morning was completely inaccessible. So fortunately, we all arrived early. I always arrive early for my tour. They arrived early, and that's the thing. Let me turn it around so I can get serious for a second. One of the biggest mistakes that people have been making this year, and I'm sure this has always been a mistake people make, but it seems like this year it's becoming more common for some reason, is not giving themselves enough time to travel from point A to point B. And there's always something that could go wrong, right? Like, how was I supposed to know that high tide this morning, right at the moment I was arriving at my tour, would happen and I wouldn't be able to access the monument from the direction I usually come. The other thing is, if you use Google Maps, speaking of Google Maps, you might look up directions from your hotel to the Jefferson Memorial, and it might say it's going to take, by car, 14 minutes, right? Well, what that's not taking into consideration is, what about the time from when you leave your room to go down to the lobby? That's not a long time, but it's not nothing. If you're going to call an Uber, how long is it going to take to come around? I've heard that people have been waiting a lot longer for their rides now than perhaps in the past, so you got to wait for that, got to factor that in. And so it's very easy for what you thought was going to be a 14-minute trip to turn into a 28-minute trip, right? Twice as long as you thought it was going to. So my general advice right now is, whatever Google Maps tells you, double it. So if it tells you it's going to take 15 minutes, give yourself 30 minutes. If it tells you it's going to take 20 minutes, give yourself 40 minutes. And that way you won't arrive late, because trust me, it is much, much better to arrive to things early than to arrive late. All right, that's my thoughts on that. So we're at the Jefferson Memorial now. So it is also under heavy construction, just like the Lincoln Memorial. They're also redoing the underneath, very similar project. They're building an exhibit, they're building new elevators, they're improving accessibility. A lot of stuff happening over there. The temporary restrooms that I mentioned, it's that building right over there. So it's nicer than a portable toilet. It's perhaps less nice than permanent plumbing, but that's where it is. So on this side of the National Mall, there are public restrooms available if you need them. But this little lift right over here, this temporary elevator, this thing has become a bit of a bane of my existence because it's a temporary lift for accessibility during the construction, and it has just not been entirely reliable. So every time someone comes on my tour who needs it to access the memorial, I get really nervous, and I just hope and pray that today is going to be one of the days when it's working. But it wouldn't be a construction site without a giant pile of dirt. So it's Sunday, so I don't think there's any construction happening today, but behind this big wood wall is the construction. Here's just some information about what's going on. So, like I said, they are expanding the exhibit space, building a new exhibit for Thomas Jefferson, new exhibit area, new sloped walkways, make it more accessible, new paving to make it more accessible, new restrooms, which I think people will appreciate, and of course, electrical, plumbing, all the systems. This place is 80 years old. This place opened 80 years ago. So a lot of this is just needed just due to its age. Now the good news is, just like the Lincoln Memorial, everything you want to see is still accessible, still available. So I'll show you there's only one way in and one way out right now, aside from that temporary lift that's over there. So you'll need to come around to this side of the monument, follow the wood wall. If you see the tidal basin, you're in the right spot. And then here's the stairs. So now they keep changing exactly where this wood wall is situated, so it looks different today than it did last weekend, but there it is. Go on up, go inside, join your tour guide, and enjoy the tour. And Eddie Saunders, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Thank you for tuning in. I've been trying to keep up with YouTube, with social media lately, because tours have just been busier this year than they were in the past. I just had a lot more time to do videos, to do live streams and everything back in 2020 and 21. Now I'm out here giving a lot more tours, which is good, don't get me wrong. Also back then, I didn't have to worry about short videos. I didn't have to worry about TikToks and Instagram Reels. And I'm still struggling with what exactly to do with all of these things. I've been posting short videos to answer your travel questions. So I have a big list of short videos I'm producing based on your comments on videos. If you have a question that you want me to answer via video, leave it as a comment on any video, not a live chat, but a comment on any video. So either this one, if you're watching this on the replay, or otherwise go to any other video on the channel, go down and leave a comment. Make it short and sweet. Don't, do a bunch of setup, just ask your question. Whatever it is, in that way, because when I make the short videos, the way that it works is that I reply to a comment with a short video, and there's only so many characters that they allow to show on screen. So if your question has a really long setup before you ask your question, nobody can actually see it. All they see is your setup. So if you want to do this, leave your comment short and sweet, as concise as possible. What a nice day. Can you hear the birds chirping? And Sky Blue Jay, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Very generous of you. And yes, happy to do one of these live streams on a nice day. I am working on, I'm gonna hopefully do one in a few weeks that's more of a neighborhood live walk. I've been doing a lot of live walks out here in the National Mall, which is where I spend most of my time as a tour guide. Not gonna lie about that. So it's easy for me to just wrap up a tour around noon and turn on the camera and go, but there's way more to DC than just this park. So I want to try to do more out and about I'm working on that, but just struggling to find the time. Okay, let's see. Boston Elevators uses Apple Maps, interesting. And Bat Dog also uses Apple Maps for transit. Didn't know Apple Maps was popular. And Jason Dirks wants to know about the Eisenhower Theater at the Kennedy Center. So the Kennedy Center, unfortunately, is in a bit of an isolated part of town. So the way that you get over there is you can either take the metro to the Foggy Bottom station and then walk. It's about a 15-minute walk. Or you can pick up their little shuttle bus. It's a little red shuttle bus. It says Kennedy Center on it. And that will take you from the Foggy Bottom station to the theater. After the show, the thing about the Kennedy Center that's tricky is that after the show, it's dark. To walk back to the metro might not feel the most comfortable. Of course, everybody wants to go on the shuttle bus at the same time, so sometimes there's a wait, sometimes there's a line. Unfortunately, it's just in a bit of an isolated part of town, and so there's not a lot of great options. Okay. And the priest says, was in DC, nighttime bathroom access is an issue. So I guess it depends what you mean by nighttime. They do lock them at a certain point. So if you're out in the middle of the night, yes, you're gonna struggle. Usually my tour is wrapped up by about 8 o'clock. Most tours are not out late enough that you're not gonna have access to a restroom. But yeah, if you're out late at night, it could be an issue. And Eddie Saunders says, look up the Kennedy Center shuttle. Yes, there is that shuttle from Foggy Bottom. And Boston Elevators asks, are they still cleaning off the roof at the Jefferson Memorial? No, the roof repair is complete. It's funny because people, they went straight from the roof repair right into the accessibility improvements and the work they're doing now. So a lot of people think it's all been one giant project. It's actually been 2 back-to-back projects. So the roof repair is finished, it's over, it's done. The roof is looking good. And let's see, Maureen. Oh, sorry, I missed some here. Don't want to skip ahead. Okay, Al says, we are planning on spending time at Arlington Cemetery. We're staying at the Hilton at the Wharf. Walking is not an option. Okay, so first things I just want to say, the Hilton at the Wharf is not at the Wharf. I know that it has the name Wharf in the name. It's not at the Wharf. It's at L'Enfant Plaza. Just saying because I don't want you to have expectations that are not met. So there are currently 4 hotels at the Wharf. There's the Intercontinental, there's the Hyatt House, there's the Canopy, and there's Pendry. And then the Hilton National Mall / Wharf is at the L'Enfant Plaza area. So it's perfectly fine, but it's not at the Wharf. So from there, you can either ride Metro. It's very easy. It's very close to Metro, L'Enfant Plaza station. You can catch a ride. Right outside the hotel is a big walkway. And if you go back and watch my video from, my live stream from, it's probably at least over a year ago, last winter, I did a little walk from that hotel to the Wharf to show you how it's done, how to get to the Wharf from the Metro. So check out that live stream and you'll be able to see where you're going to be staying and where it's located. Okay, let's see. James says, are there any festivals in June, July, or August? Yes, absolutely. So listen to my podcast episode about things to do in summer. I covered it there. We have the Capitol Pride Festival coming up, I believe, next weekend. July, we have the Folklife Festival. We have the Independence Day Parade. Yeah, we have the Book Festival. There's a lot of stuff happening. So check out that podcast episode if you want to hear more about that. Maureen says, I wanted to do a tour in Georgetown, but they only seem to be available on weekends. So, reality is that most small tour companies just don't have the capacity or the demand to run tours every day of the week. And for many of them, the tours are run on the weekends, especially a neighborhood like Georgetown. That said, most of them, any company that runs a Georgetown tour, will very likely also run it as a private tour any day of the week if they can schedule you in. So I think your choice for Georgetown is either going to be to join the public tour on the weekend or ask if they can do a private tour for you on a different day of. Okay, temporarily displaced says, are the super mutants still in control of the Jefferson Memorial? If you're talking about the biofilm that was on the roof, it's been cleaned off. And Jason wants to know, oh no, Jason just says, appreciate the information, of course. And Robin loved the live walk at the Navy Yard. I think you mean the one I just posted a few weeks ago. So that one wasn't actually live like this is, but I did walk around and yeah, I like that one. I enjoyed recording that one. It was a game day, so I got to show you what it looks like in the area around the ballpark on a game day. Maureen says, do you need tickets for the African American Museum? Yes, you do. You can get them same day, and they're not nearly as tough to get as they used to be. So make sure to set an alarm and get those same day. And Sabrina says, greetings from Germany. Thanks for tuning in. Love to have an international audience. Let me know if anyone else has tuned in internationally. And if you're tuned in from wherever you're from, we have 55 people watching right now. That's a lot, that's a big number. And I don't think 55 people have introduced themselves. So if you haven't introduced yourself yet, go ahead and say hello. Let me know where in the world you live. And Ulster is excited for Pride. And yes, Eddie Saunders with lots of good information. Thank you. Tickets for the African American History Museum. Okay, so Ozzy says, I was debating staying in downtown to be closer to the National Mall. What do I think about the AC Hotels by Marriott? So, actually not stayed in that brand. It's a relatively newer, younger brand, so I'm not familiar with it. But I'm going to put some stock into what Chris from Yellow Productions has said, because he stays in a lot of hotels, and he's done some really good videos, I believe they're live streams, about every brand in the Hilton portfolio, every brand in the Marriott portfolio. These are extremely useful videos if you travel a lot. And if I recall, he doesn't like the AC brand. And I think it's just like anything in life. Some people are gonna have their preferences, some people are gonna like them, some people are not. But I would recommend watching his video about all the Marriott brands and what he likes and doesn't for more information, because I've actually not stayed in one, so I can't really comment. But if any of you have stayed in an AC brand hotel, let everyone know what your experience was. All right, TC says, great to see live streaming. Yes, I'm trying to do, I haven't been doing nearly as many of these as I used to, just due to time constraints. I'm out giving more tours, which just means less time for things like this. And wants to know, how difficult is it to get White House tickets? Well, it's technically not more difficult than just filling out some forms, right? What's difficult is there's way more demand to do it than there is availability. So you're going to fill out a request, you're going to wait, and then you're going to hear back maybe a week or so before your trip, and you're either going to get an email that says you're going to go or you're not. So it's personally, I think, not one of my personal favorite things. I think it's cool to say I've been inside the White House, but I think the public tour of the White House is something that people put way too much energy into and then get way too disappointed when it doesn't work out. Zach says, greeting from Columbia Heights, a local. Good to see you here, Zach. Bat Dog is a fan of AC hotels. Oh, Sky Blue Jay, thank you for the reminder. Make sure to press the thumbs up button if you're enjoying this or any live walk. Make sure to press the button, because that's how I know that people like these and I should do more. And Boston Elevators is a fan of Chris from Yellow Productions. Yes, Chris and I made 2 videos last summer. We did one on his channel, one on my channel. And he is, I also did a podcast episode with him where we talked about hotels. So I can't think of any person who I trust on the topic of hotels more than Chris, because he stays in a lot of them. And my experience is different, because as a tour guide, I'm just here all the time, right? I go on my own trips, but I am here far more often than I'm elsewhere, so my experience with hotels is much more limited. Greg is watching from Oklahoma. Good to have you here. Okay, Bat Dog likes AC hotels, says they are modern, and I am a Hilton snob. And it may lure me to Marriott. That's saying something. All right, Boston Elevators says, I still remember the shirt I won from him and have it on now. I also have a Yellow Productions shirt. So we're in a good club. We're the lucky winners of Yellow Productions shirts. Mine is a hoodie, actually. Very, very comfortable. And Ozzy says, thanks for the info, watching from Texas. Absolutely, happy to provide as much info as I can. And Robert is nearby where I am now. It's a nice day. I don't blame you for wanting to be out here, be outdoors, and enjoy the weather. And Leonardo has a good question. Is it worth going to Air and Space Museum, or better to visit the one in Chantilly? So the one in Chantilly is the Udvar Hazy Center. That's where the big stuff is. That's where the Discovery Space Shuttle is. And the answer to this question is the extremely unsatisfying, it depends. It depends on whether this is something that you're interested in, or whether it's something that you feel like you should go to because it's a popular thing to do. So the Udvar Hazy Center is quite far away. To get there on public transportation will take you, we discussed this on the last live stream, potentially 90 minutes each way, right? So 3 hours of transportation to go to this museum. And for some people that may very well be entirely worth it, and no judgment if it is or it isn't, but that's only a question that you can answer. The Air and Space Museum on the National Mall, as I'm going to show you soon, hoping to get over there soon, is only about 50% reopened. So it's only about half reopened. So you're not going to get the full Air and Space Museum experience if you visit right now. I'm not saying not to go. Definitely, if that's something you're into, go, enjoy it. But just be aware that it's going to be a different experience than you would have gotten perhaps on a previous trip. All right, Scott says, love the videos, happy to hear it. My wife and I are celebrating our 35th anniversary, congratulations, the week of July 4th from Iowa. Excellent. So don't wait too long to get those bookings in. I believe there are still 2 Trip Hex DC tours on the calendar for July 4th weekend. They will not be there forever. And this is not just true for my tours, it's true for everything that requires a reservation. July 4th is historically one of the busiest weekends here of the entire year for tourism, and so you don't want to wait too long. And Boston Elevators, yes, good reminder. Boston Elevators also has a Trip Hex DC shirt that they won as, how did you win it again? I guess on a live stream. I very vaguely remember giving out a Trip Hex DC shirt as a prize, but I guess I did. I'm guessing that was either in 2020 or 21. One way that you can get a Trip Hex DC shirt, well, you can buy one obviously, but it's way more exciting to win, right? So it's like the It's like the claw game at an arcade. Yeah, you could buy a plush toy for very little, but it's way more exciting to win it. So you can win a Trip Hex DC shirt on the Monumental Trivia Tour. That is one of the prizes. So if you own one and you won it on the Trip Hex DC Trivia Tour, let me know. I know I've sent out many of them over the years. Okay, Maureen is from New York City. Hello. And Eddie Saunders says, we were driving close to DC, took a detour to the VA location and enjoyed it. Yeah, so the Air and Space Museum, Virginia location. I mean, look, it's great. It's a great Air and Space Museum. It's just far. It's just far. That's the problem. And so when you're on a trip, my take is that one of the most valuable resources on a trip is time. And so it's going to be a long distance to go, especially on public transportation. And for some people, that is more than worth it. And in that case, absolutely go. It's a great museum. But if time is really valuable for you, then I would really ask myself, how badly do I want to go? And Scott says, going there for my tour now. Can't remember what the context of this conversation. And Bat Dog says, those ice cream truck, the music annoys me. Yeah, I cringed a little bit when I walked past the ice cream truck and heard the music blaring. And Leonardo says, any recommendations for places to eat on Thanksgiving? So for Thanksgiving, I think it's simple. About a month or two in advance, go on OpenTable and go on Resy. Those are the two big reservation sites. And just see who's open. Just see who's open. And then from the list of places that are open, look to see if they have a special Thanksgiving menu. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Some places they will do turkey and gravy and stuffing and mashed potatoes, and if that's what you want, great. If that's not what you want, then that's not a good choice. Thanksgiving is just particularly tough because there are places that are open. There are places that are serving. I have gone to restaurants on Thanksgiving in years when it's just been like a really busy year. I don't feel like cooking. I don't feel like doing anything. I just want a day off. I've gone to restaurants. And so, but as far as like recommendations, I don't really have one because I've only been to a small number of places on Thanksgiving, and sometimes places they change their menus for Thanksgiving. So go on those websites, go and see what's open, and then look at the menus, see if there's a special Thanksgiving menu, and just pick from there. Not every restaurant will be open. Okay, TC will be visiting in July. Do you happen to know when the Orange Line will be working? I heard it's closed. The Orange Line will be closed at the end of the line, the Virginia end of the line, this summer. There's major track work happening this summer at the ends of various lines. I am in the process of making a video about this, but basically, this is an easy one. Don't stay way out at the end of the lines. Stay in one of my 11 recommended areas, and you won't have to worry about this. Major track work is happening at the end of the lines, and so if you stay in town, stay close to town, you won't be too impacted. If you stay way out at the end, you could be pretty significantly impacted. Even without metro major construction, I don't recommend staying that far away because, again, time is valuable. And staying there and commuting in my opinion, not a great use of time. Okay, Virginia asks, is the AC too cold inside the museums? Trying not to carry extra weight, parentheses, sweaters. This is actually an interesting question because one of the challenging things about summer is that it can be brutally hot outside, and then you go into a building and it's like a refrigerator. And the reason why this is tricky is because people have different tolerances for how much cold they can take before they get uncomfortable. So my summer uniform is basically shorts and a t-shirt, or today I have shorts and a light polo shirt. And I'm pretty much going to wear this for the whole rest of the summer, June, July, and August, because it's hot. And when I go into museums, this is what I'm wearing. I don't carry sweaters. I don't carry hoodies at this time of year. It is what it is. Other people, they might go into a museum and the AC might be blasting and they might be uncomfortable. So this is, again, another unsatisfying answer of it depends. It depends on what makes you comfortable or uncomfortable. Start there. And if you are the kind of person who in the summer frequently goes inside a building and needs to pull out the sweater, then yeah, you're probably going to have to pack the sweater, as much as it's going to be annoying to have to carry that around. Okay, TC says, I watched the live video last July 4th. Great info. Yeah, so last July 4th, I tried to do a live stream, and I think it was too crowded, so I didn't have a good connection. Kind of a bummer. So it's a bit of a choppy live stream, very similar to the one I tried to do this year on the day of the Kite Festival. It was just so crowded out here that it kind of failed. The live stream kind of failed. It just doesn't really work that well when it's really crowded out here. But speaking of 4th of July, I am in the process of working on an updated 4th of July tips video. Hoping to have that out soon. But I've got tons of 4th of July content. So if you're going to be here on the 4th of July, I've got a full-blown podcast episode about visiting for 4th of July. Pretty much everything you need is going to be in that video. I've got an entire video about best places to watch the fireworks. So if you don't know where you want to go, trying to get ideas for where to go, generally speaking, the best place to watch the fireworks is close to where you're staying. But I think I identified half a dozen or more areas where you could potentially go. So check that out. And then this year, hopefully soon, I'm going to have an updated 4th of July tips video. So Ozzy says, I can't believe they closed the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. I really wanted to visit on my last trip. So the Bureau of Engraving and Printing is not closed per se. They're in the process of moving out to the suburbs. I believe they're moving to Beltsville. The facility on the National Mall is too small. They've outgrown it. They need more space. It's a full-blown, you think about this, it's actually quite interesting. It's really the only full-blown factory downtown. We have a lot of office buildings downtown, we have museums, we have hotels, and then we have a factory, kind of out of place. So they're in the process of moving to the suburbs. I trust that when the move is fully complete, they will reopen some kind of museum, some kind of experience that you can go in to learn about. For example, a lot of Federal Reserve banks, the regional banks, not the headquarters in DC, they will have a little museum attached that you can go in and learn all about money and learn about banking and all the various things. So my hunch is that it will probably be similar to that. Okay, Sky Blue Jay coming in with some good experience info, says the AC was fine when we visited in August last year. It was very hot the week we were there from the UK. Now, if my memory is correct, Jay, it was very hot, but it was actually less hot than average. Because I remember the day I gave you a tour thinking, wow, what a nice day. How lucky are these guys? But of course, if you come in June, July, or August, you pretty much got to expect heat no matter what. For me, I guess I'm warm-blooded enough where I can walk into a museum in the summer with the AC blasting, even in shorts and a t-shirt, and still be okay. But I will agree that it is a bit of a challenge. During the hottest days of summer, places have the AC cranking. All right, so I'm almost at my final destination, the Air and Space Museum. There's some kind of music happening at the Hirshhorn. Can't really see from where I'm standing, but there seems to be a crowd gathered around some people playing music over there. All right, Eddie Saunders says, great view of the Capitol. I agree, this is quite a nice view. Brian says, government printing office by Union Station though, question mark. No idea what that means. And Jay's gonna fight me on this one. Says it was nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit when we visited. Well, I guess I must have just been having such a rough summer that even 100 degrees didn't feel that hot. I could have swore the day I gave you a tour it was not that hot though. But my memory must be hazy. Today and yesterday was quite nice days for the tour. I did the morning tour yesterday, did the morning tour today. A little bit warmer yesterday than today, but decent weather in both cases. And Kat wants to know if there are mosquitoes in mid-June. I'm sad to say there's pretty much mosquitoes all the time. They are a bit unavoidable. They might not be as heavy in June as they are later in the summer, but every year it feels like we're saying, I can't believe they're already out. I'm trying to be really careful. There's a guy playing copyrighted music over here to my right. I'm trying to stay out of earshot of that. So, by the way, I do have a new piece of advice for buying things from food trucks on the National Mall and such. My general take on the food trucks on the National Mall is that they provided an important service that didn't exist in the park, which is food and drinks on a hot day. But lately I've been hearing some stories that make me rather upset about people feeling taken advantage of. So my new advice for buying anything from any vendor is only buy from places that have the prices listed. That's what I'm going to do. But if you're desperate and you need to buy from some place that doesn't have prices listed, don't buy anything until you ask what the price is and are happy with the price. And if you're not happy with the price, walk away, because unfortunately I've heard some stories this year about people I feel are being taken advantage of. So don't order until you know the price. All right, Maureen wants to know if it's worth doing the Georgetown Heritage Canal Tour. I think absolutely it is. I think it's worth doing a lot of tours, to be honest. When I travel, I always sign up for a lot of tours, and I very rarely say, wow, that wasn't worth it. So the Georgetown Canal Tour, it just came back recently, so, and their dates are fairly limited, so yeah, definitely go on that if you're here when it's running. All right, the copyrighted music didn't play in the video. That's good to hear. And James wants to know, are there any dinner or lunch food trucks? There's plenty of food trucks, but I don't think they make much distinction between whether they're specifically dinner or lunch. If you go on triphexdc.com and then go to the blog, I have all my favorite lunch places, all my favorite cheap eats are listed in a blog post. I compiled them all there because lots of people asked, lots of people wanted to know. So these houses here, these are here every summer, first week of June, I think, as part of some demonstration about various innovations in home architecture. If you actually watch my video about the best places to watch the fireworks that I recorded last year, I recorded it in June, the beginning of June, and you can actually see these places in the background. There's always something happening around here. There was graduations happening before. There was some kind of farm equipment on display before. So if you come here and you see something happening on the grass, don't worry too much about it. There's always something happening. Okay, let's see. Ozzy has a question for everyone in the comments, or for me. What downtown hotels have you stayed at? So if you want to know what hotels I recommend, go to triphexdc.com/hotels. I also have an entire full-blown podcast episode where I run through for an entire hour all the areas that I recommend staying, why I recommend those areas, and which specific hotels I recommend in those areas. So check that out if you're curious. Kind of trapped myself in here. Got to find my way out. But of course, I don't really stay in these hotels, so my experience is based on their location and based on what you have told me about them, and the you in this case being people who have come on my tours and people who have provided me their experience, feedback on their experience from visiting. So I'm always all ears to hear what other people think on the topic of hotels, because I don't personally stay in many of them. Okay, Eddie Saunders says, yes, the food trucks are out pretty much all the time, especially in the summer. And Ray says, family visiting in early October, wondering my opinion on the Courtyard Marriott. So it's not, I'm in the process of deciding whether I'm going to add that area to my recommended list. It's not currently on there. I think you should probably pick one of the other 11 areas, quite frankly. Bat Dog likes the Capitol Hilton. Yeah, that's a good location. And Sky Blue Jay says that they stayed at near Union Station at the Hyatt Capitol Hill, and it was fine. A nice hotel, good location. I would have also stayed at Crystal City, which was good. All right, so thank you for all the recommendations. Here's our last stop. This is the Air and Space Museum. The reason you don't see anyone out on this side is because the only entrance right now is on the Constitution Avenue side, so you cannot access the museum from this side. Pretty heavy renovation going on. You can kind of understand why. It is only half reopened. They still have a lot of work left to do. The full renovation is scheduled to be completed in 2025, which I know is 2 years from now, so you're gonna have to be patient, but I promise it will be worth it. The Air and Space Museum was desperately in need of a renovation, and I know it stinks, especially when you come during a renovation, to not get the full experience, but it was needed. It was badly needed. So this is what it looks like right now. Just want to point this out. The museum on the inside is about half reopened. I did make a short video last October about my experience going, and so you can check that out if you're curious. But you can go. Make sure to get a timed ticket. You do need a timed ticket, and just set your expectations accordingly. All right, let's see. Everybody's talking hotels. Let's see what everybody likes. So Eddie stayed at the Intercontinental at the Wharf, the Capitol Holiday Inn, and Kimpton. Eddie likes IHG hotels. So so typically people are loyal to their brands. We've got all the brands here. That's the good news. And Leonardo wants to try the Hay Adams. That's definitely a pretty famous one, an excellent location right across from the White House. And let's see, H. Harrison started watching before we moved. Oh, well, happy to hear it. And yes, Kat is following for reservations and such. Well, that was the last thing I wanted to stop to see. So we got to see the construction update at the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, and the Air and Space Museum. So all three are currently open. If you come on a Trip Hex DC Monuments tour, we will go to the Jefferson Memorial, we will go to the Lincoln Memorial. They're open. The Air and Space Museum is 50% open. Make sure to get a timed ticket. So they're not 100%, right? You're gonna see some fencing, you're gonna see some wood, you're gonna see some big piles of dirt. And they'll be nicer once the renovations are finished. But for now, this summer, 2023, this is what you can expect. And that was my goal with this live stream today, is to basically show you what to expect. So I'm gonna wrap up here. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for joining me for the last hour and 15 minutes. Let me go ahead and wrap up any final questions here we've got. So let's see. Ronan, 2 families visiting in July from South Africa. Not familiar with using trains. We will be arriving from New York by Amtrak and staying in Georgetown. There's no metro in Georgetown, but your hotel may actually be called Georgetown. It might actually be by Foggy Bottom. So I've got tons of metro videos. Go ahead and check those out to help you get comfortable with riding. And Maureen is looking forward to the July 4th update. Yes, keep an eye out for that. And Eddie Saunders, thank you for tuning in. And thank you again for the very generous super chat, Eddie. Always appreciated, very much appreciated. And as well for Jay, appreciate the super chat. And it's, the train from New York to DC is actually fairly simple. If you've ridden trains anywhere in the world, then it's pretty similar to that. So don't stress out about it too much. There are a lot of train videos on YouTube. And I know this because I was searching for them recently. So there are quite a few people that do Amtrak content, And if you make Amtrak content, guaranteed you have taken the New York to DC route at least once, if not many times. It is probably the most popular route in the Amtrak system. So if you want to get comfortable, just go use the search feature, look for people who have taken the New York to DC Amtrak train, and you will find plenty of people who have had that experience that you can watch and get comfortable. Thanks all for tuning in. Joe, Virginia, thanks for tuning in. Jay, of course, thanks for staying up late in your part of the world to join me here. And as I say at the end of all of these, thanks for tuning in and enjoy your trip.